Just a week away from the White House's self-imposed July 4th deadline to pass President Trump's mega bill. But even if it passes the Senate this week, the version they're sending back to the House is getting pushback from some Republicans. Joining us now, Republican Congressman Chip Roy, and you've made some strong cases in the past on how you feel, and you feel strongly, Congressman. Is the Senate version, from what you know, a better, do you like it more than what the House came up with?
Well, morning, guys. Well, first of all, the president is right to want to get this bill across the finish line. And of course, all Republicans in Congress want to try to deliver to ensure that there's not a tax increase on Americans and that we can actually accomplish the things that we said we would do. But here's the problem. We sent over the bill from the House, and we think that it did what needed to be done. Was it perfect? No. I voted for it somewhat reluctantly. But what I could say with a straight face was that I believed with assumed 2.6% economic growth and the revenue that would come in from that, right? Because we believe that if you have growth, you get a little bit more revenue, that with all of that, we would be roughly break even. Technically, we'd lose about $72 billion in more deficits over a decade. But we can't continue to perpetuate additional debt, additional deficits. The Senate bill gets markedly worse. We believe right now, of course, we don't have text yet, let me be very clear, but what we've heard out of the committees, the Senate bill would add about $1 trillion of additional deficits, or at least up to $1 trillion of additional deficits. In addition, it does not terminate the Green New Scam. We fought for that in the House. They're watering it down in the Senate. The president was clear, terminate it. We don't believe we should subsidize inefficient energy that enriches the Chinese. Thirdly, this bill doesn't do as much on the food stamps and the SNAP benefits that we think are problematic from a welfare standpoint. Fourthly, we think there's a significant number of changes that have been occurring in the bill that make it worse. For example, $24 billion we had in remittances for people who are here illegally, sending money back to their home countries, we wanted to tax. This Senate bill takes that out. I could give you dozens of other examples, but the short version is this. We've got to come together to deliver on what the American people heard the president campaign on and Republicans echo, and that is making sure deficits go down, we terminate the Green New Scam, and we get the government where it needs to be so that inflation goes down, interest rates go down, and we can have economic growth. The Senate bill goes the wrong direction. It needs to improve before it comes back to the House.
Why do so many published reports at least intimate that the Senate bill was even tougher on Medicaid reform and actually went further than the House did on some things like that?
Well, so I should say, yes, Medicaid did improve slightly. And I put out a chart yesterday, which you all can look at, that shows that we lose ground on food stamps, lose ground on the Green New Deal, lose ground because of the overall cost of some of the tax permanents, including some taxes that may not be all that economic growth inducing, like child tax credits. But yes, we got about $150 to $175 billion of improvements out of Medicaid. That is good. Rick Scott fought for it. We fought for it in the House. But that's net not good enough. They need to keep the Medicaid improvements, frankly, make them a little better to end the money laundering scam and to stop all of the able-bodied getting 7 times more money than the vulnerable. But they need to return to what we did to stop the Green New Deal subsidies and keep deficits lower. They got to find more cost savings. You're not going to combat inflation or get interest rates down if you don't do that. You know and I know. If the president replaces the Fed chairman and we end up with somebody that's going to come in and lower rates, that's only one rate, right? We got a whole curve we got to deal with, and you're not going to get those long-term rates where we want them to go if we keep spending money we don't have. Congress has to address that. That's where the Senate fails. But I am proud of what they did on Medicaid, making that better. But frankly, we need to go further, right? We need to do more.
Your colleagues across the aisle stop the presses, but you're going to hear you are cutting benefits for the most vulnerable. And that's all they have to say is they'll say you are cutting food stamps for people so that you can extend tax cuts for the wealthy and for big corporations. And you're going to hear that again and again. But I mean, New York's got a guy running for mayor now that's resonating with a lot of people in this country right now, Congressman.
Well, here's the problem. The truth of our bill is we have work requirements in the bill that poll at like 85%. Because the American people think that if you're going to have some sort of benefits for health care, Medicaid, whatever it is, food stamps, that you should work. And that's in our bill. We believe that the able-bodied should have to work. The vulnerable is what Medicaid was designed for. It's what the food stamp program exists for. So the Republican bill is just a return to the common sense that we have the welfare reform that the bipartisan Congress did in the 90s. We want to return to that kind of common sense. It polls overwhelmingly in our favor. We just have to be clear about that. But let's also make sure we're not going to reward blue state, high tax jurisdictions with a big pop to the state and local tax caps. And that's what, unfortunately, we did in the House. The Senate wants to move in the right direction, but they're already talking about negotiating that back to where the House was, which would be bad because it would cost us another $350 billion. The American people don't send their tax dollars to Washington to subsidize a socialist mayor in New York. They don't want to do that. So we shouldn't do that. But we should have the reforms in place so that the able-bodied do not get 7 times more subsidy from the federal government than than the vulnerable for whom Medicaid was originally designed.
So you would, to anyone saying that, you're ready to debate them that the benefits are not being cut for needy people for food stamps and Medicaid. All you really are putting in are some reforms that Bill Clinton put in for work requirements. That's all you're doing. There's no overall cuts to the program that are going to leave people hungry and I don't know, needing sustenance.
The overall benefits, Medicaid, for example, goes up some 30% over the budget window. Over the next 10 years, under our bill, Medicaid goes up. Only in Washington can people say that a reduction in increases is a cut. Only in Washington can they say, food stamp dollars will continue to go up as well, but those are being redirected and targeted to the people who most need them, and make sure that there's appropriate work requirements and other eligibility checks. We need to make sure that only American citizens are getting them. We need to make sure that only the people who are deserving of them are getting them, instead of those that need to be finding work or otherwise ineligible.
All right, Congressman, that's clear. Thank you. And we'll see what comes out of the Senate. But if they got you on the first version, and I mean, it's going to probably get done, I guess. We'll see what comes out of the Senate, though. Well, thank you.
The Senate's got some work to do, though, because if they don't fix the Green New Scam subsidies, I'm not going to get there.